Hey, what's up guys? Jake with Legacy 4x4 here again with the second installment of the 1950 Willys Prerunner interior build. Alright, so for today, I've got a long weekend, and so I've got a lot of good plans here of what I want to accomplish on the interior of this project. We're not going to completely finish the interior in this video. I think there's going to be one more that comes after this. That's going to be the final touches of the interior. For the purpose of this video, for the rest of this weekend, what we're trying to do is get a lot of the big stroke, large function areas done on the interior of this Willys. So we're trying to finish doing the rest of the structure for the Willys, cleaning up the firewall, setting up the initial parts of the trans tunnel, and kind of getting like those large form things done. In the next video after this, I will then get into like installing the seats, installing the pedals, the steering wheel, steering column, all of those like small auxiliary stuff. That's all going to come in the next video. But at the end of this video today, what we're going to have is the rest of the big form finished on the interior here. So we've got a lot of things on the inside to kind of skin the dashboard and the trans tunnel. We've got a little bit on the back to skin out the back window, which is going to involve a little bit of plasma cutting. And we've got a little bit of actually exterior tube work just over the middle portion of this frame. I'm doing the exterior tube work because I'm going to be building off of it for some of the other interior parts, so I need those two pieces in place so that I can move to some other parts of the progress. I'm also going to eventually need the exterior tubes in order to tie in my tube doors too, which will be in another video after this. I'm going to start by cleaning up this firewall. So you can see at the end of the last video, this firewall was just a perfectly square, well, rectangular piece of steel that was fit around our internal piece of frame that we made down here. What I need to do is I'm just going to turn on the plasma cutter and I'm going to cut right along this seam here and get rid of some of this excess metal, specifically on this rounded corner. Then I'm going to come through the flap disc and I'm going to smooth this whole thing out, because you can see that I went through and I did a full weld seam along this entire piece here, basically like a pinch weld. So with that finished, next step is just to get rid of the excess metal and then smooth this out. Once that's done, then I can start to give a little bit of structure to some of these tube pieces. So that's probably what we're gonna end up doing, I think, is we'll start with this, knock this out, and then we'll do some of this external tube stuff so we can get a good look for this at the end of the day. I have my printout from BinTech, and now what we're going to do is make the B pillar. Due to the shape of the Willys and the way it tapers in as it comes forward, this bend actually has a rotation on it, so that's why I actually took some time and I drew this out on BinTech properly. I got all of the information I needed here, and we're going to just knock this out. I got two of these to make, one for both sides of the truck, and we're going to do that part next. As we move forward with this part of the project, what you'll notice is I'm going to cut the tube to length and I'm going to mark it, and then I'm going to use my digital angle finder in order to make sure I get the rotation of this perfectly correct prior to putting it into the bender. I'm going to put both of my clamp blocks on the tube right at the start. That way I can ensure that it's exactly the way it needs to be when it comes out of the bender. I do also have 3 inches of cutoff on the front and the rear of this piece of tube, and I've got that done just to make sure that it gets bent right, and then I got to cut a little off, or whatever. I have more room to play with. It's easier to remove tube than it is to add. Moving forward though, the Rogue Fab does make pretty quick work of bending up these pretty complex pieces of tube. I'm a huge fan of this bender. I've mentioned it before. This bender combined with BinTech software makes bending tube a breeze. I do eventually plan on upgrading this bender to an actual fully hydraulic setup, but I'm doing some research on that right now. More to follow on that in the future. Anyways, we got these tubes done and mocked up, time to tack them into place and move on with some more of this tube work. Alright, moving right along, I'm going to transition from some of this tube work and I'm going to get back into doing the interior. I put like the B pillar and the A pillar in here just to kind of give some structure to the rest of it, and I'm going to tie in some of the other supports that the interior runs into to those two pillars. As we progress with this video and with the next video, I will finish the front of this cage, but that's all going to come later. Moving on into the interior again, I pulled the seats back out, they were in the way, and now we're starting to mock up the transmission tunnel, and after the trans tunnel, then we'll get into doing the dash. My idea for the trans tunnel is going to be pretty simple. I'm going to use some more 2x2 angle iron because I think this is a really good base, provides a lot of structure for the interior of this truck. I'm probably going to skin it with some 3" 1/8" flat bar stock again, the same exact way that I did the floors, because I think that this works really well and it's a really clean, simple solution. I've got a 2x2 runner on this side I'm about to cut up and make fit perfectly. I'll do one on the driver's side as well, and those are going to provide the main frame for the trans tunnel. I'm then going to cut out on the plasma cutter a piece of sheet steel to go on the two sides of our cockpit, and then the top part of this is what's going to be removable. This is going to give full access to all of the internal components to provide service to anything that runs through the trans tunnel. I'm planning on running my coolant tubes, my fuel lines, my brake lines, everything is going to run through the center of this truck. So that's why I want to be able to service it nice and easily if I ever need to. I'm going to go ahead and start cutting this out and getting it tacked into place so that we keep moving on with the interior of this truck. Alright, so unfortunately that's all we got time for today, but we are going to be able to finish up this video and this project throughout this weekend. So we'll come back tomorrow and we'll keep crushing it. I got one side of the trans tunnel finished, so tomorrow I got to do the other side, and then we got to start plasma cutting out the top of it, or at least establishing what the top is going to be. So the top is going to be removable on this. I decided to make the sides built into place because I think it's a cleaner look. So these are going to be welded into place, and I did come through and I rounded out the top right along where that angle iron fits. They're plenty strong enough. They've got a little bit of flex right in the middle, so I might come back and add a little bit of that 3" 1/8" flat bar stock. Aside from right directly in the middle, they are extremely sturdy though, so I really don't think it needs it. It just might be if I feel like putting it in there or not. Pretty clean solution. I'm super happy with how it's shaping out, but again, we'll come back tomorrow and we'll finish crushing this project, and we should be able to shape this up pretty quickly, I think, from this point forward. Alright, welcome back. New day today. Moving right along, we're going to actually install the shifter for the transmission as well as the emergency brake for the C6 that's in this truck. I'm doing it this way because I need to have these in place so that I can kind of see how they're going to interfere with some of the other designs that I've got going, specifically the top plate of the transmission and then also the dash pad where the gauges and things like that are going to go. So I need to get these in place first, and then we'll be able to design the rest of this interior around these remaining pieces. I got this shifter and the emergency brake from American Shifter Company off of eBay. It looks like a pretty high quality kit. I've got all the parts laid out here. I'll show you them in a second, but let's go ahead and jump right into it. I have already finished up skinning the other side of the trans tunnel. So I've got both sides of it skinned, not cleaned up all the way yet, but at least they're both skinned and finished. So we're gonna get the shifter into place, and then we're gonna move right into doing the top plate of the transmission tunnel, and then also doing the back window and a few other odds and ends throughout the interior of this truck. Alright, so you can see all the parts here. I'm not really sure how it all goes together, but fortunately American Shifter Company does have a video on YouTube that I'm going to follow to ensure that I install this properly. It does look like pretty high quality parts. Everything is stamped and modeled as it should be. It's got a nice kind of rainbow zinc type coating on it, and they all seem pretty well machined. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so we got the shifter fully installed. It did take me a little longer than I was expecting, and I am expecting to have to do some more work on it once we get to the mechanical kind of functions of this truck, because I'm sure it's not perfectly lined up with the, park, reverse, neutral drive kind of style. That's okay, we'll play with that when we get there. For now, the shifter's where it needs to be, so now I can base the rest of the transmission tunnel off of the shifter's position. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make the cross supports, because this transmission cover, the removable top part, is going to be in several sections to facilitate kind of like an easier maintenance on certain parts. So like there's going to be a back electrical section, a transmission, shifter, bell housing section, and then there'll be a spot for the e-brake to go as well. I'm going to use some of this 3" by 1/8" flat bar stock to make a lower support, and then I'm going to plasma cut out a piece to go on top of it with all of the right holes in it. Since there's going to be things bolted into this, I want it to be a little thicker than just a piece of 14 gauge. So let's go and do that. We're going to start measuring this out, cutting it out there, and welding it into place. Moving up, now we've got some plasma cutting to do. I'm gonna cut the front section of the trans tunnel. I've gotta cut 2 seatbelt pass-throughs, and I gotta cut what I'm gonna use to frame the rear window. That's pretty vague. You'll see them cut on the plasma cutter, and then you'll see what I'm talking about once we start installing them here on the truck in a second. Anyways, let's go ahead and keep on moving, see how much work we can get done today. Alright guys, unfortunately this is all that we have time for this weekend. I can't work quite as late today as I'd like to, and a few of the things took longer than I wanted them to take. What this means is I did not finish where I wanted this video to finish, but I have to edit it and I have to publish it so that I can move on to some actual work stuff that I've got to do. So sorry, this is going to end a little short. Anyways, let me show you guys where we're at now, and you can kind of see, at least you'll see how things are shaping up and what this is going to look like moving forward in the future. Alright, so you guys can see and hear the way this looks. We did throw down some riv nuts and then some 1/4" by 20 button head bolts onto this to hold this 14 gauge trans cover in place. We're going to do exactly the same thing to the rear here, and there's going to be a cutout in the rear that's going to hold my switch panel, my cup holders, and all my other things like that. Pretty straightforward and simple. So you can see that this front section up here is where the gear shift is, the transmission or the transfer case shift, and the emergency brake are all going to be. I've still got to throw the bolts through this, but you can at least see now mocked up how this is going to look. And I've got to finish going through and actually tightening down all of our bolts here for this. But pretty clean and simple. Again, we'll do the same thing back here as well. We'll cut it off on the plasma cutter, drill the holes through the angle iron back here, and that's what we're going to mount everything into. Up here, I've still got to figure out some way to do a dash kind of mini section up here where all of the gauges are going to mount, and then I might do a glove box over there. I haven't fully decided yet. I'm planning on keeping the driver's side very Spartan, just due to the fact that it is going to be in the way of my knees and the pedals. I do need to come through and do seam sealer around the whole edges of everything, and kind of do a little bit of tack welds along where the inside of the firewall meets up to the old steel itself. And I do want to do some extra structure here on the A-pillar on the inside of the vehicle. So I got those little small things to do. I've also got to do the windshield. That is coming. That's probably going to be in the next video when I do up the rest of the interior. And I do have to do the rear glass, and we'll talk about that real quick. Moving to the rear of the truck here, I don't want to do a second like horizontal bar going on the inside of the truck. So instead what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut a window on the back of this sheet metal here, and I'm gonna skin it with some extra material, and then I'm gonna pass through the seat belts and the seat belts are gonna tie into this back here. It's gonna look kind of weird because it's gonna have exposed seat belts in the back on the roll cage here. But like I said, I didn't want to take up interior space by putting in another bent tube in there for no reason. So that's what we're gonna do. You can see that I cut on the plasma cutter my little windows. So what's gonna basically happen is I'll put these up on the back here, and I'm gonna sandwich the old steel in between this new steel, and that's going to provide some extra support and structure, and it's going to clean up the hole that we're cutting into the side of the sheet metal so it doesn't just look like it was a plasma cut hole. Instead, it's going to have a nice clean little barrier on it so that it looks nice from the outside. Again, these are just quick and easy off the plasma cutter, simple little project. The rear window is going to be the same thing. I'm going to make 2 sandwich plates, and I'm going to sandwich a piece of plexiglass in between those 2 plates, which you'll see probably in the further video, like when I'm doing the windshield. Alright, but like I said, this is the end of this video for this week. I apologize you guys aren't going to be able to see me finish up this interior. I'm going to go straight into finishing up the interior kind of as I have time, so I'm not going to bother to record the rest of it. You can see what I'm doing, you can see how it's shaping up. All of the big, cool stuff that you want to see anyways will be included in the next video, so make sure you stick around for that. As you can kind of see behind me, I do have parts piling up on my welding table, so I really need to get this done, and I need to get some of these things off of that table and then put into the truck where they belong so that I can move forward and kind of clean up my space a little bit. With all that said, I hope you guys like this. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and take care.